Hello viewers, the Nations Cup has finally returned on Gran Turismo 7. We have a 4-race schedule, and this first race, wow, I mean, where do I begin with this first race? It's around Sardinia A, and this corner here might look fairly innocuous, but let me tell you, this might be my new scariest corner in the game. And when you combine that corner with Group 2 cars, 8 times tyre wear, we're in for quite a treat of a race. On my earlier races, well, let's see how those went. Race number 1, attempt number 1 in the qualifying session. It was the fearsome left-hander that posed the biggest problem for me, as you can see here. Just carrying way too much speed in and grinding off the barrier. Okay, that's not how you take that corner, is it? No, it isn't. That is not how you take it. So I completed my first lap here. I then backed out, rejoined the session, thinking I had enough time to get back round to start another lap on fresh tyres. That was not the case. As you can see, the timer running down 3 seconds to 1-0, and I was maybe 3 seconds away from the start-finish line, and therefore I did not have enough time. I start, therefore, 15th on the grid, as you can see, right at the back, or near enough right at the back. And this would be pretty much a practice race to see how this race plays out. Now, on the opening lap, I was incredibly mindful that heavy damage was set to on, and therefore you don't really want to get involved in anything stupid, which is so easy to do when you're towards the middle or the back of the pack. I tried to fight through here. You can see just going into this hairpin, just backing off and just making sure that nothing crazy happens, and I end up losing a position on the outside. Through the fast sweeper of death, as we can now maybe call it, just backing off from the cars in front again, just to make sure we don't get involved in anything stupid. I knew that this was a long race, and the Nations Cup races do tend to be a bit longer, 18 minutes, so we're looking roughly at half an hour of racing. I then see a car off in the gravel, our first victim, and then the car on my right hand side there with the exact same livery as myself, a bit slow off the turn, 2 positions gained. I'm then about to try for another one, and this is where things get a little bit awkward, as we both pretty much clatter into the Spaniard and smash him wide. Now, luckily enough, it turns out the Frenchman there with a 3-second penalty actually made the contact, and so I got spared getting a penalty. But we continue, having gained 2 positions and then lost them immediately, back to 13th. It was going to be a long race, let's put it that way. He served his penalty. I got in the slipstream of my teammate once again and got back to 11th with plenty of free air in front, plus a car recovering from a crash. I moved to 10th. Now, this car went into the pit lane at the end of lap 3, which is just the wrong strategy. You need to wait until at least 6 laps if you're on a soft tyre, and if you're on the mediums, which I am, then at least the end of lap 12. And we can fast forward to lap 12 right now. As you can see, the tyres are dying of death, and this was just part of this race. With 8 times tyre wear, it was going to be an incredibly difficult management of the tyres throughout this race in both stints. So that's the end of the first stint. Changing over to the soft tyre for the second, exiting the pit lane, as you can see, an agonising 3.5 seconds away from the group in front, and it just would not come down that gap. I did manage to catch up with this guy, and this weird incident happened where he went very wide. I kind of smashed my way past him on the way out of the corner, and you can see there he's just turning left, but just nowhere near enough, and his tyres are pretty much dead by that point. End of lap 17, gaining another position there, moving up to 7th place. Ultimately, after 18 laps, the soft tyres really beginning to die very quickly. After only 6 laps, I finish in 7th place, having gone up 8 positions, earning 206 points, which isn't too bad. But we move on to slot number 2, 4 o'clock, hoping that this one could give us a better result. Now, qualifying, I set a pretty solid opening lap there, 33.1, and it's a lap I was happy with. Much better than my first attempt, let's put it that way. However, I knew that I could go quicker, this time by not resetting and going to the pit lane for fresh tyres. I improved my lap time on the second lap, 6 tenths away from pole. However, none of it mattered because the lobby disconnected. And so that was a complete waste of time. I was not able to do the race. We had to load back in and go for race number 3. And before this one, I set up a lobby, did a bunch of practice laps with a couple of you viewers, which was really good. And then just jumped into a nice little session in the time trial on my own, just to work out against the Ghost exactly where I'm going right and going wrong. Just trying to improve my qualifying time, and I got my consistency down, you see there, into the mid 32s a couple of laps in a row. And so I was quite happy with the pace going into qualifying. Now fortunately this guy requested that God gives me strength, which is possibly what I need, because this was the 3rd race out of 3. The last attempt, it has to go right. I can't afford for this to go wrong. I can't afford to have a disconnect. And I've waited 5 hours to get to this point. And so we're hoping at least we can get off to a good start with a solid qualifying lap. Let's take a look at this then. Down into turn 1, braking at the 100 board. Let the car roll into that camber down by the apex. Has so much grip, especially in these Group 2 cars. Incredibly fast cars with a lot of downforce, a lot of grip. Into this awkward little left-right chicane in the middle of this sector here. Getting the power nicely on the exit. And then this little left-hander kind of rolls nicely as you go over a little bump before the 50 board brake. You can turn in quite late given the grip. And then on the power, having to lift off slightly as I was heading towards the barrier momentarily. Having said that, a decent lap so far. Up towards the big braking zone at the end of the back straight. Looking for the 100 board. Hard on the brakes. Trailing off the brakes. Let the car go in. Back to second gear on the exit. Make use of the curb on the way out. And that's something you have to do around here. Sardinia A. Really maximise the track limits wherever possible. 102.9 through that split, which I was fairly happy with. A good run through the sweeper of death before hitting the anchors into the final turn, which is effectively the final turn, is actually the penultimate turn. This right-hander here is actually the last corner, but is easily flat out in this car. So pretty happy with this lap so far. We managed a 32.9 on my second attempt before the disconnect, and we've done a 33.0 there. It's a good consistency, but I know that I can go quicker. That lap puts us second on the grid at this moment in time, with the Hungarian driver behind less than a tenth faster. So very small margins. If I can get a 32, at least as it stands right now, I would be on pole position. So let's try and improve a little bit more. Although as you can see, 2 tenths down in the first sector. It wasn't a good run through the first corner, nor the chicane after it. A little bit wide there through the sweeper. And so as we head up to the line, what's it going to be? A 33.4. So a bit slower, no improvement. And unfortunately, some other drivers are improving. And therefore, we've been pushed down to 3rd. Now, I did cross the finish line with 3 seconds to go. And therefore, I did get another attempt here. Only a couple of us managed to get a 3rd lap. However, by this point, the tyres were a little bit dead. And I wasn't able to improve. Starting the race in 4th. But yes, this is the race, guys. As I touched upon at the beginning of the video, a really intense battle from start to finish. 18 laps around Sardinia, Group 2 cars, although pretty much everyone is in the Honda NSX, which dominates this class pretty much every time. As we head down towards turn 1, nice and safe with the rolling start, everyone's fairly spread out. And immediately the leader is beginning to pull clear. Now this guy was 1.2 seconds quicker than myself in qualifying, which was pretty much top split level, which was, world-class level of pace. About as quick as it gets, really. So I'm not sure what he was doing in this lobby, but I was fully expectant that that guy would just begin to pull clear, never to be seen ever again. And so I think the real aim here was second place. At least that's what I was telling myself at this initial opening stage. As you see there, already beginning to pull clear, as the rest of us are fairly close. However, with the Nations Cup being longer races, I do think that people tend to be a bit more patient. We don't always go for the big dive bomb on lap 1. I know they say that you should try and overtake, get the job done early, but sometimes, you know, it's best just to wait, be patient. We've got plenty of time here, about half an hour of racing. There's no need to force the issue too soon. After all, you can't win the race on lap 1. I mean, they say you can't, but maybe you can. It looks like the leader has bolted clear. Maybe he has won the race on lap 1. But we do have 17 more laps left to go. As we head down the straight towards the opening corner, we're going to fast forward it to the beginning of lap 4 here. And this is where things just begin to get a little bit spicy. So for the first 3 laps, it was just a case of just beginning to, you know, feel my way into the race. But by this point, the Hungarian driver, Batman, in second, just begins to make a couple of mistakes, just goes defensive here. And this was something I was concerned about. I think ideally at the opening stages of the race, you don't really want to have to start defending and losing time too much. All that does really is allow people from behind to catch up, and it just gives you more competition. I think the more ideal scenario is just to work together and pull away, and then do the fighting a lot later on, which, to be fair, is happening for the most part. As we come down towards turn number 1, lap number 5, Andy there on the outside is going to go for a really nice move, pull it off, and Batman there with a poor run on the exit. I'm going to go up the inside, and therefore he's going to lose 2 positions in very close succession. So not the best lap here. It is quite tricky as we go in deep to the chicane, so not the best chicane I've ever taken. And I think I gave him just about enough room, if you maybe include the curb. But I'm up into third. With now, the main job is to try to keep up with Andy, because he is got to 0.9 seconds in front, and I'm in danger of being dropped here. But I'm not out of danger, because Batman is quite close with the slipstream, which was incidentally really rather strong in this race. He actually get lunged there by Chrome, but he does get a good exit and manages to retake the position. I do notice these 2 guys behind fighting, and so this is my opportunity to try and pull clear of them both and try to get back on terms with Andy, who I have managed to reel back in by 2/10 on the latter stage of this lap. So we can take a look at the gap here as we head onto the main straight, as it starts at about 0.77, and even from this range you do pick up a toe, albeit a faint one. I think it is roughly about 3 or 4 tenths where it really begins to pick up a lot more, but there is still some benefit to being this close. As you can see, I've probably gained about a tenth on the straight. However, into turn 1, to take a much better line, carry a bit more speed, use the camber to my advantage a bit better. And then the gap comes down to 0.5, with now Batman actually dropping slightly here after that battle with Chrome. And so I have my full attention looking forward at Andy, who has actually made a couple of mistakes there. So not the best lap. It was 0.9 seconds in front about a lap ago, and now it's 0.3, 0.4. And therefore, we're fully back into this fight. As we say, we don't really have to turn our attention backwards, although I do look backwards there. So I do have to, maybe to some extent, just to keep awareness, keep tabs of my opposition. Not that I'm immediately worried, but just to be aware of the positioning. 1.7 is the gap behind, so we don't really have to immediately worry. However, if we start fighting too much or start making mistakes, then that gap can come down quite quickly. I was quite mindful to not follow too closely through the fast left sweeper, and this looks like it's going to be a good overtaking opportunity. Of course, Andy there does not have the benefit of slipstream from anyone in front, whereas I do, and therefore we should get a run. Now, interestingly, he does not fight this one, remaining on the right hand side, fully gives me the inside line, and this was really good to see. As I touched upon a moment ago, early stage of the race, you don't really want to fight too much. It's not kind of necessary. I felt like I was quicker. Made a couple of mistakes over the last couple of laps, so I thought, you know what, let's go through. You can see it there. He had a bit of a run. He could have maybe sent up the inside. But I think sensibly just gives the bump draft, and we can both continue, hopefully trying to keep away from Batman here, who obviously qualified in front of us both. Technically on paper is quicker, and you can't rule him out. We have still, at this point here on lap 8, a good amount of laps remaining. And you see Andy's still giving us the bump draft up the back straight, which is good. Definitely a good thing there, as we can continue to try to pull away from cars behind. The gap to the leader, 8 seconds by that point, now 11 on lap 10. The leader was incredibly fast. So as we come out of the hairpin, lap number 10, this is where things are beginning to hot up a little bit again, because Andy just begins to drop off slightly, and this brings Batman back into the picture. And my goodness, I mean, what in the name of physics went on there? Let's take a look. As Andy goes through, I think by about this point you'd expect him to kind of brush off the barrier and continue, but no, Gran Turismo physics would like to have a word, as they stop him dead in his tracks, and he gets sent to the Shadow Realm, to another dimension. I don't know where he is now, but rest in peace to him, as that was quite a horrific incident. But that is one less person to have to worry about now in this race. I mean, I'm thankful to Andy for working with me in the first half of this race, but he's no longer in the picture. The man in the picture is Batman, who is quite a person to have chasing you down around Sardinia, of all places. So as we round out this left-hander, long looping left onto the back straight, quite an important corner leading onto a straight. I do sense that Batman is beginning to come back into the picture properly here. He had a really bad couple of laps in the middle of the race, or in the middle of this stint. And that's my first real mistake through that fast left. I mean, I've not been taking it as quick as I could, but I've not made any glaring errors, at least. And immediately Batman is right on the back of me, and this sets the tone for the remainder of this race. I can assure you it's going to be excruciatingly intense from here to the end. And we try to switch back to the inside there, misjudges it slightly, goes into the back of me. No worries really, I remain in front, and that's the main thing. And this is lap 12 of 18. As you can see with the medium tyres, they are incredibly worn, and so we're looking to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap to change over onto the softs. The softer tyre at the end of the race should run quite nicely. The leader goes into the pit lane 12 seconds in front. He's been pulling away by a second a lap so far. As we peel to the right hand side, go into the pit lane, we can get rid of the medium tyres, get some fresh soft tyres on. I was thinking about going in an extra lap just to preserve the soft tyres a bit better in the second stint, but I don't think it was worth doing. We might as well go in now, leave the pit lane in second place, and actually have a bit of a margin here. The gap 0.9, and so this is one of those moments that's quite crucial for the race. If I can just pull away here and get out of slipstream range, that would be incredibly beneficial, as Sammy Snake gives us a nice message there saying, "Go on, big lad," which was nice encouragement at this point of the race, because it was hotting up and it was really rather filled with pressure. As Batman here, we know his pace. He seemed to be a little bit more inconsistent, but had better baseline pace than I did. So it was an interesting battle. You see there's certainly a gap though between the two of us. It's not a case of him being right on the back of me, and so this is a really good opportunity to try and pull away and not give him any assistance with slipstream. So let's see if we can do this as we come up into this part of the track, and this is where it turned out that he was incredibly strong. his line and commitment through there was so much better than what I was able to do. I think if I had tried to risk taking it the way that he did with that much commitment, I think I probably would have crashed. And maybe not even just once, maybe multiple times. And so that was his real strength in this battle, his ability to take that section of the circuit very, very quickly and consistently. And it was a good point as well, because it comes, just before the final corner and therefore the main straight. And therefore I'm not quite able to stay away at a crucial moment of the race, of the lap. So lap 14, not many laps to go, 5 including this one. The soft tyres are gonna wear out to a point where they're pretty much dead by lap 18. And then we've got that problem to deal with. We've got the incredibly difficult sweeping corner to deal with. And the gap stands at just over a second. This would be the biggest extent that I would manage to get it to. Because as we come out, once again towards this fearsome sweeper, come through here, I just had to turn out there. I think I turned in a bit too early. And just had a bit of a moment, just had a scary moment there where you kind of think, I'm going to hit the wall, I'm going to have to turn out. And that's not an ideal thing to have to do. You do lose quite a lot of time doing that. And all it does is put more pressure on me. I tried to break the toe, but he's going to have the slipstream here, and there's not really much I can do about it. All I can do is move to the left-hand side, force him to the right, and therefore the outside, and he can try a brave move around the outside, but it's not quite going to work. So pretty much a textbook defence there. However, it's not over yet. He has a really good run. I'm going to protect the left-hand side. Now the inside for this chicane. He's going to try it around the outside. There's a tiny bit of contact, but I think it's just about permissible as we continue on our way. So a really good battle brewing up between us with only 3 laps to go after this one. And so there's not really a chance of me having a nice easy race from here to the end. I'm going to have to really fight for it. As I take that pretty well, consider going defensive, but I don't think he was close enough to really send a proper move there. And so we go again into the main straight. He's at that kind of awkward range where he's 2 tenths behind. He can get a bit of a slingshot from here. And so this could be quite tricky to defend going into the first corner. The formula is to stay to the left, force him to the right, and then just gradually force yourself and him over to the right hand side. Make sure that there's no separation between the two of you, and then just make sure you brake slightly later and run him wide on the exit. Make sure that they back out. And so we've just managed to do that twice in a row. However, how many times can we do this? It's getting close and close to the end of the race. That was not a good run. I'm going to have to go fully defensive now into the final corner, and making sure that I don't go into the side of him, I have to slow down and rotate the car a little bit more than usual. And he's actually pulled off a really nice move around the outside. However, now it's roles reversed. Let's see if we can get a bit of a slingshot here. Try to get into the toe, pull out to the right hand side, bit of side draft, and then as we head towards the corner, I've got a bit more of a run this time. A bit further ahead, I create the separation at the last moment by moving to the right hand side. And thankfully, I'm able to retake the position immediately. And so I was really worried there that once he got past, that would be that, because his pace seems to be better, at least at this moment. And so to retake the position immediately was a really, really good moment in this race. However, again, it is not over. Still a lap and a half to go. Now through here, I get quite a good run. Out in third gear, really smoothly on the power. And so with a 0.5 second gap, I'm not going to be vulnerable here into this braking zone. You can see that's way too far back to go for a move. But I must say that his line through here was really impressive. He was really confident on the brakes and then on the power on the exit. And so he was pretty much always able to gain slightly through there. And then of course through this bit, my principal weakness on this circuit, I would say, I've not taken it too badly so far, and that wasn't too bad, but he just takes it so much quicker. He has so much more confidence through that corner. I go a little bit wide on the brakes, and it's going to be the last time in towards turn 1. 1 lap left to go between the two of us. Who's going to win? Is it going to be Super GT or is it going to be Batman? That's not a question I've ever asked before. Well, crossing the line, here we go. Fully defensive once again, just making sure he does go to the right hand side. And it's the same thing again, a textbook defense. He really tries harder a bit this time, not quite able to make the outside move work. I think with the camber on the inside, it really does benefit the car on the left hand side. And so we live to fight another day. However, the hardest part is still ahead of us. That fateful final sector, which he seems so strong around. Over the bump into the left-hander. He takes a nice line here. And there's obviously, of course, another opportunity into the braking zone at the end of this straight. Is he going to be close enough? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it could be a dive bomb from there if he gets it right. And we now have a visual distraction in front as well. That is not the leader, that is a back marker. That person will ghost out. However, it is a visual deterrence, or visual distraction, should I say, which is not at a very welcome time. So through the sweeping left, we take it okay, but I'm immediately going to have to go defensive. He actually takes the position on the outside, goes a little bit too deep. I'm able to take a narrow line, retake second. However, this is not over. It's a drag race to the line. He could slingshot past on the run up to the finish line. Let's take a look at this one then. I'm going to try and go defensive as much as I can. It's a drag race between the two of us to the finish. And boom, as we pause it there, I'm able to do it by half a car length. Yes! Come on! Oh my god. Did everything I could. And it worked. And the results are in. After only one round, admittedly, we're sitting first in the local rankings, 9th in the UK and 60th in Europe, Middle East and Africa. So right now, as it stands, I'm sitting pretty for 6.75 million. We're going to try and crack into that top 5% in Europe so that we've got gold on all 4. So please do join me on Saturday for Red Bull Ring Group 3 cars. Apparently we've got some mixed weather coming. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.